Welcome to today's EMS Leadership Q&A. I'm Lisa Girizzi here with Robbie McHugh. We are the co-founders of the EMS Leadership Academy.
And for those of you that don't know, we help EMS leaders bring out the best in themselves and others. And today's question is, how do we get seen as more professional?
Well, it is a really common question that we get asked, and certainly a big issue in the EMS world. And, my initial response to that is, are you treating yourself and other EMS professionals as professionals? Are you treating this as um, yourselves as a professional? That's a really important aspect of this question, because too often people kind of see themselves as quote unquote just EMS, or they compare themselves to other professionals in the healthcare arena. And rather than seeing the crucial role that they play in healthcare. And frankly, I think everything starts with how we see ourselves, because the old adage, what you expect, you get, is really true.
Absolutely. And if I could just add in there, it's a crucial aspect because we find ourselves at the intersection of public health, healthcare, and public safety,
Mm,
and
great
playing in
point.
these three different arenas and being a critical aspect of all three.
Yeah. And one of the ways this sort of shows up is in appearance. And I know, there's a lot of arguments one way or another, but how you feel about yourself and how you treat yourself often shows up in how you physically show up in the world. In appearance, for better or worse, is important. You know, um, you don't see doctors showing up without a white coat, or it professionally dressed, if they're not in a white coat. Uniforms communicate something, and not just a uniform that looks sloppy, but neat and well groomed. Are people wearing sneakers or casual wear rather than uniform footwear? Are they coming up in clean uniforms? I know that happens. Just even being clean shaven or well groomed, women having their hair up, or, so it's not in the way. I mean, all these kinds of things communicate. People are interpreting what they're seeing. So if you want to be viewed as a professional, you have to look the part.
And as a leader, you have control over that by the matter of your budget too. Where are you prioritizing your uniform budget? Where are you
Mm,
prioritizing this in a policy and communicating this? I think one other, and I'll just share my screen here, one other important area that Julianne Stevenson brings up a lot is this idea, and she puts words to what Lisa and I think you and I talk about a lot around.
mm,
Some people say that the personal development, professional development space, and communication, these are all soft skills. And we often refer to them as essential skills. Julianne takes it a step further and points out these are affective domain skills. These are the emotional growth, emotional intelligence, interpersonal awareness. So often our EMS programs, our education starts with the psychomotor skills and making sure we can do the physical skills, and then advancing into the cognitive problem solving skills of being a paramedic. And Julianne actually for years trained paramedics, and now she consults with accredited paramedic programs, really focusing on the affective domain skills and how imperative it is for paramedics and EMTs to have these important skills.
absolutely. And it's interesting. And I love how she makes this all equal, right? It's not a triangle where, this one's smaller than that one. They're all equally important. And it- I would dare say, and please, disagree with me if I'm off, but I would dare say the vast majority of complaints and questions that you and I get are in that
Yeah.
affective skills category. So when people see these as soft skills or something of that nature, they don't realize the essential nature of these skills. These are the things that drive leaders crazy, is people don't have them, right? And developing these are so important. And again, I would argue putting this as a budget item
Mhm.
to help people get developed in these areas. They don't People don't show up with these skills perfectly honed. They need support and training.
And Lisa, there's been research studies done on, at least for physicians, if a physician is going to be sued or not, it's usually dependent upon those affective skills and maybe the first 30 seconds of how they interact with someone. If somebody is treated with respect and they're treated nicely and the communication is clear, and often I think if they have a smile or not on their face, it influences that entire interaction and that patient is going to have, and whether or not they're going to actually ultimately, I think, sue the the
Yeah.
provider if something goes wrong. It's quite a stark study that's out there.
Well, that ability to connect is really what we're talking about, and the ability to communicate and be mindful of what the situation is, and that's all part of professional development. I mean, when I first started, even in social work, when I started 30 years ago, you know, it wasn't taught. It really wasn't. It wasn't taught how to do those kinds of things. I'm sure it's changed since then, but gosh, how important those skills are, and the fact that you have to figure that out on your own. I mean, let's teach people how to do that, right?
Absolutely. And to take it to the next level, it's a quite contentious topic. Our degree advancements in are critical to advancing the profession. There's arguments out there that, oh, street paramedics, they don't need degrees. Well, that's great, again, to do the psychomotor skills, to have some of those cognitive skills. Those can all be learned in our current existing structures, but to really advance the profession, it's necessary for our profession to move towards degree requirements, starting out with associates, moving into bachelor's degrees. I mean, I was surprised to look up the statistics around nursing programs, and the first nursing bachelor's degree program was in Minnesota in 1909. And it wasn't until, I think it was the Federal Nursing Training Act in 1964 in the US, it pumped enormous funding into collegiate nursing education, and it developed more bachelor degrees programs, advanced practice programs, PhD programs. But it really wasn't until the 1980s that universities and students, and I think pushed by employers, started to require, and nursing associations started to require those degrees. And many paramedics are only a few credits away from getting their associate's degree after going through over 2,000 hours worth of training in their accredited paramedic programs. And I'll just share the screen here. The NAEMT has a great resource list. And if you just Google degree programs in EMS, NAEMT, you can look at any of these. But I've heard a lot of great things about these programs, specifically a lot of connections with Columbia Southern University, Creighton University. They've offered advanced degree programs online in both critical care training and the operations, right? Developing yourself as a healthcare and public safety leader. And if you look abroad in Australia, there are PhD programs for paramedics. Monash University is a very popular university that people from around the globe attend. I've spoken with several of the professors there and PhD paramedics, and they've recently obtained prescribing rights in,
Wow.
I believe, in Australia, and I think in the UK recently obtaining prescribing rights. And it's because it's becoming more of a research-based profession, more advanced level practitioners. So it's really great to look outside of just the confines of our states and the U.S. to what other programs are doing and advancements in Canada as well.
And I think it's important as an organization to just really make a case for hiring and providing funding for people to obtain their degree.
Yes.
It's a great retention tool for sure. It's a great recruitment tool, like to have some kind of reimbursement or coverage for advancing your degree or getting online credits in a degree program. I mean, I think it's a really essential tool for leaders and EMS leaders to argue for.
Absolutely. I mean, you have control over your budgets and education line items, and consider them as investments in your people.
Yeah.
And if you're in charge of an accredited paramedic program, I would highly recommend reaching out to Julianne Stevenson. She's a great resource on LinkedIn, and with her Sterling Credentials consulting company, she has a lot of great things to say about this affective domain development in the paramedic training.
Absolutely. And even it could be as, I don't want to say simple, but um, you have if you have onboarding training already, think about adding these essential skills as part of your onboarding training. And so people come in with the understanding and agreement about how they're expected to communicate, what the standards are for those kinds of things. I think that's a structure that already exists for many organizations, and just plug that in. So,
And I know we weren't going to talk about it, but I will say one free resource you could check out is our communications mini course. Again, it's a 1 week program, very small modules, but very powerful exercises that people have gotten a lot out of, especially in that affective domain, personal growth area.
yeah, it definitely shifts people's awareness of how they are impacting the world. And it's a free resource currently on our website. So, um, thank you everyone for joining us for this session of our weekly Q&A. If you have a question to submit, we'd love to answer it. So please send it to support@emsleadershipacademy.com, or you can leave us a voicemail. We have a toll-free number, 888-330-8288. And again, thank you for joining us.